Good to see you, sir.
Nice seeing you, Craig.
Thank
How you doing?
I appreciate you taking the time to talk about 44 years in the career, 26 years at RoMac. I would imagine that the actual interrelations that you have with vendors have probably evolved over those years.
Yeah, things have changed quite a bit. But however, I'm not one of these dinosaurs that says, oh, this is how we used to do it and that's the way it should be. Quite frankly, I'm totally the opposite. I embrace technology. I like a lot of things, especially, some things out of COVID I really like for efficiencies, like Zoom meetings. That's really made us more efficient. But I look at the technology advances as a tool, sort of like a phone. You use a phone to make calls, but that shouldn't be the end-all be-all. And so I'm a little different. I look at what's happening with vendor interactions today, and I shake my head at some people are relying too much on technology. So I have some different opinions, but no, I'm not that dinosaur that says, hey, when I start in 1980, we still need to do the same way. Because in 1980, to be a successful vendor, you walked into More Hanley Home Crafters in Pascagoula, Mississippi, slapped the store manager on the back. You say, hey, let's go fishing. And that's all it took to get PO.
Right, and probably in those days you pulled out your spiral bound notebook and you brought in a box of donuts and you started to have a conversation and you were a clerk as much as anything. So when you deal with a good vendor today, a good sales rep, what are you expecting from them now in terms of how they act and operate?
Well, we're different than a lot of companies. We set up our business partners and vendor partners like in November for the following year. But then we push everything down. The decisions on what to buy and when to buy are basically held in our store managers. And what that allows is our vendor partners to earn the business of each store and to develop relationships, because we find the closer we can get our vendor partners to the store managers, the salespeople, the contractor coordinators, the better it is for our customers. And ultimately, that's who our end user is. We want to make sure that those customers are serviced properly.
What are ways that a good sales rep can earn your business?
First off, by showing up and showing out. That's one problem we have today. You have a lot of salesmen that claim to be vendor salesmen. They'll blow in here, want to shake my hand, and blow out. That's not important to us. The first thing we'll say, if you're a vendor sales rep, and I'm fortunately in a position now, I have a very tough schedule. And I tell anybody, if you want to see me, please email me to let me know. I try to be very respectful. First off, I want to meet with vendors, find out what's going on, but just don't show up. But secondly, we want our vendors to come in, walk our store, look at their product lines, know what's going on. The sad thing, we have vendors show up and they'll request a meeting with me. They won't know anything about the company, won't know anything about the product lines we're selling, have limited information, done no homework, and then they can't figure out why we show little interest. The people that gather our attention are the folks who understand the locations we have, what we're buying, what we're selling, and some background information. And it's pretty easy to get that information. You can go to www.romacfl.com and we tell our complete story.
So basically doing your homework in part means looking at the website, learning about the market, studying the demographics.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of times it just means coming by and visiting. We're pretty open. We're very transparent. You go to any of our lumber yards or any of our businesses, the managers and the outside salespeople will talk to you. And we're open to good ideas. Our best ideas come from others. And a lot of vendors just don't get that. They want to do a text. They want to do video conference. The sad thing, I've met with some vendors in the last few months that quite honestly, they didn't know anything about us. They didn't know who I was, that I'd been here 26 years. And it's not that I'm trying to be egotistical, but I'd like to, if I'm going to request to meet someone, you should know a little something about it. And once again, we're very transparent. You can find out, but showing up and showing out is real important for our vendor partners.
You told me a story earlier about a vendor that came to visit you that you really liked because you thought they did a good job.
Yeah, we Parliament Building Supply is an independent supplier here in the state of Florida, and they were a company, and they sort of floundered. They didn't provide some of the stuff we needed, and they got bought out by a new group, and one of the owners is Jim Kervelic. And Jim, and I probably butchered his name, Jim, I butchered it every time, but Jim is the owner, and he came by and see me, and we talked. At the time, we were doing virtually no business with Parliament. And he said, well, what's your needs are? What's your wants? He provided information on the foundation steel markets and other things. And every year he's come by, he asked us, how do we want to be sold? What's important to us as a vendor? And he set up programs that met our expectations. And every year for the last 3 years, our business has grown exponentially with him. And now because of him working and his vendor representatives working, our store managers actually want to do business with him because we see that he is concerned about it. So, I look at Jim and I say, that's how you can take someone who was virtually doing no business, every year has grown the business, and now he's to a point in our company that we want to do business with him. And there's other people that we do business. We're very loyal in how we treat our vendor partners, quite frankly.
I would say that in the old days, the old joke was you brought a box of donuts in. The box of donuts has gone away, but it still seems like vendors feel like the best way to get to you is to invite you to the golf course.
No, not for us. To be honest, we sort of we participate in shows, and we're not too loud. If we go out to dinner or something, that's no big deal. But to be honest, we actually are good vendors. Any perks we give to our employees, and vendors do various things to get the attention of folks who are doing business with it. But most of the perks we get from vendors, we give to our employees. It's not about a box of donuts. It's not about a golf outing or none of that. I don't have time for it. Most of our managers don't. Quite frankly, what's most important to us is turning around the information quickly and getting us priced correctly. I tell every vendor, I say, hey, look, it's in your best interest to competitively price us. If I can't sell it, you can't sell it. So that's, first off, on price, we have to be competitive. But secondly, the end customer, our builders, our customers, are the folks who have that Amazon standard. They want their information now. They want it now and correct. So the vendors that can provide us timely information, make sure it's correct, and be competitive, not the lowest price, they're going to get our business.
We've talked about what it means to be a good sales rep. Let's talk about the manager. Let's think about the person running the operation. Are there particular things that the back office of a supplier needs to be doing in order to win your business?
Absolutely. We don't do business with some vendors because they can't keep our billing straight. At RoMac Building Supply, one of our pet peeves is to ever lose a cash discount. In the 20-something years that I've been here, the times we've lost a cash discount has always been because of a vendor failure to properly bill us. And we're very much sticklers on how we control our inventory. So vendors that can't do a proper account, can't bill us correctly, we have a problem with it. The other thing is, we like the vendors that come to us and say, well, how would you like us to bill? Now, this sounds foolish, but we're a company and we have our own payables department. Every check is written out just down from my office in Leesburg. And we have 4 or 5 young ladies in there. So if everybody wants to be paid on the 10th, it's not a question of the cash. It's a question of the actual processing of the bills. So we have some of our vendor partners, we said, hey, you can change our terms up, but if we could stagger our dates where we don't have to cut as many checks or whatever, it helps us out. And those vendor partners who have accommodated us on these billing issues just to allow our staff to work with it, that's mattered a lot to us. So how you bill us, when you bill us, making sure that we get our cash discount and make sure it's accurate, it's extremely important to us.
How do you feel about dating as a way to win your business?
we're financially strong. We're more into cash discounts. Dating could be important in some areas, but if you give me a choice between dating and cash discounts, I'm going to take a cash discount.
And on the list of things that matter to you, where does the price of the product figure in?
When we negotiate our contracts for the year and negotiate with vendors, the first thing I tell you is no matter what, supply chain disruption, you're going to honor and keep us in stock. So the first thing is that commitment that we will not run out. And even though we're a relatively small independent compared to all the national people, we never had much in supply chain disruptions through 22, 23, or 21, 22, because for 25 years I've been here, we've had contracts, we've lived up to them, we've done what we said, and people could rely on that. So I think those relationships with our vendors really were solid and kept us in stock. But the first thing we talk about is supply. The builders we supply, we cannot run out. The second thing is we've got to be competitive. Competitive means we've got to be within 1% of everybody else. And that competitiveness then goes cash discounting. It goes to terms when they want to be paid. You know, if you're someone that we have to pay an invoice every 10 days, well, hell, that puts a burden on our payables people, and that matters to us. And then, of course, all the other services, like if we have a problem, taking care of that. And then the other thing, we do a lot of we do a contractor night, for example. Ours is May the 3rd, and we have this year people who support our marketing efforts. We have a marketing fund that they support. And like this year, we're going to have John Michael Montgomery, but we're going to have 1,500 contractors at our contractor night. It's sort of become the contractor social event, but our vendor partners participate. And every one of our vendor partners that participate tell us that that's the best contractor night they go to by far, because there are real people there and you can meet and show your product. So the total package, the participation in our CEU programs and what we do, we truly embrace our vendors to work with us, because I go back to this whole thing. It's important to be competitive so we can sell, but it's important that we can provide the information so we can be that source of information to our builders.
For some dealers, the money that they get to help promote products and buy t-shirts and do other things are really important. Other dealers are on the scale of, we decide what we want to do, and if the vendor wants to get involved, we'll take the money. Where is RoMac on that scale?
The way we are and the way we've operated for all the years I've been here is we have a marketing plan, and we ask we designate primary vendors and say, hey, look, as a primary vendor, you're going to be able to get access to our sales meetings, to our lunch and learns, to our contractor nights, to our CEU programs. You're going to have total access, and your money will be spent. And to be honest with you, RoMac's probably going to put just as much or more in this marketing, but together, these funds will be allocated for pull-through marketing to build our relationship with builders. For example, like our contractor night, it's in May. We're going to have John Michael Montgomery, and we're going to invite 1,500 builders free of charge. And you're going to be able to have a barbecue beforehand, and you're going to be able to meet all these people. And we encourage you to set up a booth and be ready to engage, and it's a wonderful event. But that money we get from our vendors, we designate that plus a whole bunch more with ours and our effort to do it in our CEU program. So we have an organized way of doing it that really bang for buck. For example, we do lunch and learns. We have our own training center here that can hold 200 people. We do lunch and learns, and we allow our vendors that are primary vendors to have lunch and learns and bring people in. And our marketing team, we have a great marketing team. We actually have a media marketing department. We bring in a lot of people. For example, we had in February a economic update. We've been doing it along with the Lake County 100. We had almost 200 people there. And so we're actually doing the things in marketing. And it's not about a t-shirt or a hat. It's about providing opportunities to engage with customers. And that's where you win.
You talked about yourself not being as big as the biggest dealers out there, but let's face it, there aren't that many big independents left in Florida.
Yep.
You're one of the most important. You've got some weight. Uh, Theoretically, the sales reps are going to be paying attention to you more than they are to the much smaller places that in Florida that still are around and in the rest of the country. What can a small dealer do to get share time of the sales rep uh, that goes beyond maybe what the dollars that they're spending figure in?
You know what I think most importantly, where a lot of independent reps or independent businesses fail with their vendor partners, is that they treat them like a number. They don't treat them. I use a word in my business a lot, respect, and that goes. I respect our employees. I'm like a mafia guy. Respect is this big word for me. You respect the people who work for us, the folks who sweep the floor. You're very respectful. But on the vendor side, a lot of people disrespect their vendors. You know, they treat them as a nuisance. They don't listen to them. That's not us, because one thing I found out that every vendor, we may not be doing business with you right now, but at some point there could be a product line that we could need and you would want to sell us. And and plus another thing about our business, we all intermingle. In the last 44 years of being this, you know, guys I've known 40 years ago was selling 2x4s this way, now he's selling doors this way. You know, we all sort of say the same thing. And I just found out if you're being very respectful and listen to people and being honest, you know, the other thing, I don't have to get mad with someone and say, hey, you know, look at, we went with a new program. And, you know, when we decide who we're going to do contracts with, I've been honest with people. Sometimes say, hey, you had actually a better price, but we've had this long-term relationship. The people feel more comfortable in doing this, but we're going to still buy secondary products from you. But, you know, just being honest and respectful, I find out is the most important thing with our vendors. And I think if more people did that, the vendors would appreciate it. And that's where I get a little aggravated with some of our vendors. They'll come in my office and say, well, Don, how can we sell you? Okay, we'll say, well, you need to, this is how we go to market, this. And they don't listen. And then I can't tell you how many times in the last year a vendor will approach me and say, Don, we'd really like to talk to you about a new program and do this. And I say, hey, look, we're looking for a new program and maybe an ancillary line or a different line. And yeah, let's talk about it. And they'll say, and they're full of gung-ho enthusiasm wanting to sell us. We'll have the meeting and then we'll never hear anything. You know, we are very transparent, and we're, unlike a lot of people, we don't keep people guessing, but the follow-up lately on some of our vendor partners is, if you have a new program and someone gives you a door to open, go through the door. Some of them don't.
I think there's a general belief among dealers that there are fewer traveling sales reps around for these companies and that they're trying to rely a little bit more on technology. Has that pendulum swung too far?
Yes. I have an opinion that retailers have forgotten how to be retailers, and companies have forgotten to have how sales representatives are supposed to act. We have inside sales reps and we have outside sales reps, and both serve a purpose, but both need to know their roles. And quite honestly, the last few years, in all cases, people have gotten lazy. You know, I go into some of the big box stores and I look at, and I'm not telling anybody how to run their business by no means, but I look at some of the retail schemes and what they're doing, and, you know, if I were running a retail building material outlet, I'd go back and learn how to be retailers and how to provide service. Because when you have customers wandering your stores and they don't know where to ask somebody or get an answer, you know, I think some people need to rethink and go back to Retail 101.
Have you ever dropped a vendor over a warranty fulfillment issue?
Yes. The biggest thing a vendor can do is tell us that they're going to warranty something or cover something or if there's a problem, and then when push comes to shove, they don't. We had a window company, and it was during the pandemic. Came in and said, "Okay, we got this window." They were out of a Midwest state. I'm not going to identify the company, and they said, "We really want to get in the Florida market," and we had the mechanism to sell a lot of windows for them. And they said, "Okay, first off, we can give you 6, 7, 8 weeks lead time. Secondly, if there are any issues, we're going to address them." Well, we started out with them, got a few orders, things looked a little positive, but then the lead times went to 12 to 16 weeks. Okay. Then we had some issues with products. No follow-up, no service, no answers. And in fact, some 2 or 3 years later, we have a customer, we're still dealing with issues. We won't never sell that window again. And then we've had issues as far as certain types of plywood that failed, and the company didn't react. And it wasn't that it got wet or anything. It's a bona fide product failure. Well, yeah, we're not going to do that. So yeah, it happens frequently, but most of the vendors we do business now, and first off, we're not trying to deceive nobody or lie. If we have a legitimate problem, we have the merchandise shown, hey, look it, and everybody corrects it and goes about their way. But we do have people that do that, and it's an important part of the process, because at the end of the day, we have to take care of that end user.
Yeah. A number of manufacturers and vendors have tried to combine things. You know, if they sold doors, they started selling windows. If they sold molding, they started selling other products.
Yeah.
Under the belief that the more products they could sell you, the more likely they were to sort of dominate the business and get more of your business.
Yeah.
Do you have philosophies as to how many vendors are enough vendors? Like, for example, just as an example, do you always want to have 2 companies providing the same kind of product, just in case one fails?
Well, you know, most people, our builders have learned that lesson. There are builders, especially on the national level, that before the pandemic, we had a tough time selling. But they've had an epiphany, and they said, we're not going to put all our eggs in one basket. Especially there's been a movement towards more local people, because they found out, hey, these local guys can pull a few things out. But we have adopted the same principle. I have sort of a crude adage, and I'm going to tell you what. During the pandemic, we had some builder-related companies buy some truss plants that were probably struggling, and because they couldn't get trusses, they've decided they were going to build trusses. And the adage I told many people, and I'm going to apply it, wrap it around the vendors: a builder buying a truss plant is like a priest buying a whorehouse. Neither one knows what they're doing. And today, we're seeing companies buy unrelated companies. Roofing company may buy a door company, window company, or whatever. Well, first off, that's not new. That's the way it was in the 70s. There's a company called Union Camp that bought stuff and did that. And at the end of the day, they all busted up, and those things are no longer exist. People have to have expertise. And the thing that a lot of people don't realize, even in M&A, you can buy a facility, you can buy a door plant, window company, but if you don't have the expertise, especially today, running it, you're going to fail. And there are companies buying these companies in these areas that they don't have the strong leadership. They don't have the strong research and development. And I'm not sure how it's going to work out, because at the end of the day, with 3.7% unemployment, people like you and me getting older and grayer, the development of talent and people running these businesses, if you don't have it in place, the 4 walls and the facilities don't matter.
Let's talk about training. You have sales reps that you have to train. Mm-hmm. Vendors have sales reps that they have to train.
Yeah.
Are there certain principles that you think you should really stress with your sales reps when you're doing a training program that they should be learning from day one?
We do. RoMac has invested, for a smaller company, we have a full-time training director. And the epiphany we had a couple of years ago is that finding and recruiting somebody to fill a lot of these positions, just not going to be able to do it. Plus, we're in Leesburg, Florida, Wildwood, Florida, Lake, Florida, Mount Dora, Florida, all throughout Central Florida. And quite frankly, we're not in Orlando, Tampa, and even those areas are struggling. So getting people to move here is a struggle. But we have wonderful people living here. So we made a conscious decision to start training our people, plant our flags, and we're hiring more people with the right qualities. We call it the it quality. You know, that it quality is that person who knows how to sell, knows how to relate to people, has those tendencies to be a great salesman. And then we're training them. We've embraced a system called integrity coaching and integrity sales training. That's something that I actually picked up from my old days at Wix 28 years ago. To me, it's the best training program around. We're bringing our folks through, but we're planting our flags and training our people. Now, I'm going to circle back to this. Most of the successful people in our industry, sales reps, were trained by old Georgia Pacific, trained by old Weyerhaeuser. They had training programs. They brought these people up. I honestly believe that companies like us and the bigger companies, they're going to have to refire up their training department, identify these younger people with the it factor, paint them the picture of how much they can make, and then start investing in training. The day, you know, if you look at resumes today on Indeed, you're seeing what I call B and C players go 1 and 2 years at a company until they find out that they don't have the tenacity to hang in, and you're retreading people. I think at some point we're all just going to have to do what we're doing. Hire your training director, put your flag in the ground, find the people within your organization, develop them, and that's how you're going to get your leadership of tomorrow.
That requires a lot of patience at a time in an industry with a 3% profit margin.
Yep, there are, but the problem is you have no other answers. I mean, you can't buy yourself out of this one. I look at the talent. You know what's amazing? I look at the C-level talent that's spreading out resumes. And my goodness, you got C-level people that's not been with companies a year and a half, 2 years, bouncing around from, you know, and I know I'm the exception. I've been here 26 years, going on 27 years. But you know, I have a factor, Craig, that if someone's been with a company 5 years or more, they've seen the good and the bad and the ugly. They have the tenacity and grit to really get through it. Those people have been there 1 and 2 years. They don't have the wherewithal to take you through the good times and bad times. And
that is a totally non-millennial concept, I have to warn you, Mr. Magruder.
I know, but can I tell you something? We're finding out in our own group, millennials want that. There are people, I do not prescribe with the belief that a lot of people our age think that this generation don't want the same things we want. We are finding that this generation does want houses. Right now, there are people in their 30s to give anything to be in a home. That urge to own the house is greater than any time. There are people today that want to stay with a company and have a stable future and know that they're going to be able to come in. I think the problem is we have too many people that are not offering that.
And that's a great way to segue into the conversations that you had with at the Florida Building Material Association meeting last year,
Yep.
Where you were talking about the future of housing in Florida. I eventually wrote a story about it called "Has Florida Lost Its Edge?" and it turned out to be one of the best read stories I did last year. When you think about where Florida is now, 6 months after that that panel that you had,
Yep.
and we'll go in and give some of the highlights to people about what happened. When you think about life 6 months after, where do things stand now in terms of Florida's ability to take care of its housing?
It's really not much better, and my opinion really hasn't changed. First off, I'm glad that my executive panel discussion at Florida Building Material Alliance was so good to you. I know you followed it for many years. It is a great panel, and the Florida Building Material Alliance does a tremendous job. I've been moderating since 2010, I think. So thank you for the shameless plug, but I'm glad to know you got so much readership off of it.
If you keep producing news, I'll keep writing about the news. So,
you know, Florida was a different state 26 years ago than it is today. What really changed Florida, to me, in a bad trajectory, was Hurricane Andrew in 1992. Hurricane Andrew, when it hit, there's this, oh my God, the houses in South Florida, Miami, failed, and it's because we didn't have enough codes. And the real fact is the codes we had then wasn't being enforced. It's what most of the autopsies of the events showed. But there was this belief, okay, we're going to adopt universal building codes in the state of Florida because insurance people said if we don't do it, no one will be able to afford insurance rates. So this was going to keep insurance costs in the state of Florida down. Well, how has that worked out? Florida's now the worst state in the union probably with insurance, homeowners insurance. We're in an insurance crisis, so that didn't work out very well. Ever since the adoption of these new hurricane codes, the state of Florida has ceded to the insurance regulators and others the overregulation of housing in Florida. Granted, there are some improvements that need to be made, but Florida has gone the way of California in overregulating housing, how it's built, how it's mandated, how it's zoned, how every aspect of it. What used to be easy to do in Florida is complicated. You ask any developer, 20 years ago, lots that used to be developed for $5,000, $6,000 an acre, now development costs are $50,000 and $55,000. So every aspect. And Florida continues to overregulate. In fact, this year, the implementation of the new updated universal code has shamelessly a lot of jurisdictions, people that applied for permits last year, and they were not able to issue the permits because their inability in the permit office. Now they're making these people update their plans, and that stymied permit rollover in the state of Florida.
You told me about Lake County earlier.
Yeah, we've had a couple of weeks where hardly no permits were issued because they have such a backlog and they've overcomplicated. So Florida continues to go down the road of overregulation and over permitting housing. Plus, they've gone down the road of California with impact fees. Here in Lake County, Florida, we're not in a municipal area. We're not Orlando, downtown Orlando. But like in Mount Dora, Florida, to build a house for the first shovel of dirt stern, you're going to probably spend $33,000 to $38,000 on permit fees, sewage fees, and stuff like that. That's ridiculous. And the problem is, well, you say, well, you're paying for growth. That's a argument in Florida that is so false. When you have a piece of raw land, and I know I'm getting in the weeds, it's at a taxable value down here. You put a house on it, now the taxable value's up here, and it's forever. So the growth is paying for itself. But they've convinced people that these impact fees are needed to expand the roads and stuff. It's not. So you have that element. So we over-regulate it, over-impact feed, and now with the retirees, wealthier retirees come in, and inflation, you have high interest rates, inflation on housing, high impact fees, and they're merging, and what's causing it, squeezing out working people and affordable housing. The problem Florida's going to have, we're going to have people that are going to be needing to service all these folks and the jobs of the future. It's not going to be able to afford housing. Housing, I know for some areas a 2-bedroom apartment rent for $1,900 is nothing, but we're in Lake County, Florida.
So if you had a magic wand and the governor's pen together, what would be the first 1, 2, or 3 things you would do to help us get back to a world in which we can have more affordable housing in Florida?
First thing I'd do, I'd freeze all regulations relate to housing development in the state of Florida, and then I would start a rollback. It was a lie to the people of the state of Florida that adding all these codes would reduce homeowners insurance. So that's the first thing. We need to deregulate housing and get it affordable again. The second thing we need to do, we need to address this homeowners insurance crisis, because I'm not going to get into political wise or not on climate change, but there's going to be significant issues along the coast with Florida with hurricanes, and they're going to have to address it. But one big thing they can do is put meaningful tort reform in here and stop this litigious growth of against homeowners insurance, and do things to regulate bogus claims against homeowners insurance policy. So we need tort reform. Then the people, the governments and local governments, state governments, state of Florida, are going to have a housing program to address the affordable housing issue. Right now, there's tens of thousands of people that have no place to live, and we're starting to see families go in homeless shelters and stuff in the state of Florida. And we're going to see a migration out of the state of people who we need, working people.
Is modular housing a possible solution?
I do think so, but the problem is the NIMBYs don't want it. You know, when you talk about modular housing, yes, but the modular housing industry, you know, there's a development here in Lady Lake, Florida that people all up and ride. We don't want it, but at some point, where do they want people to live? So we have to have a meaningful, affordable housing policy in the state of Florida where it addresses development issues. And I think not tiny houses, but we're going to have to go with planned communities, sort of like, you know, after the 40s. And this is one statistic that's really hit me on housing. In the 40s, today we have more adult children living with their parents than any time since the 40s. And the 40s was significant because production in the United States had gone to war production. People were overseas fighting the Germans, and when they came back, we had no housing. So people had to live wherever they could. We're at that stage, we're at that critical mass, which created the Levitt homes in New York and those areas. And what companies did, they had a manufacturing plant, and they would put workforce housing around it and build houses so people could staff their factories. We're to that point, and a lot of people don't realize that. So we need a meaningful, affordable housing thing. And then finally, I'm going to say Florida needs to get back to Florida, in my view, politically.
Do you have any big dreams for RoMac in the next 5 years?
Oh, yeah.
What's on your mind that you'd love to see happen at this little old lumber yard?
Well, first off, we want to become the biggest lumber building independent in the state of Florida. We want to add capacities in our various plants. We want to hire the best people we can, and we want to become the experts when it comes to construction information in the state. So we have a lot of dreams, and in fact, last Thursday I had our sales management meeting, and I challenged our people. I said, why not? Why can't we do this? Nothing's stopping us from doing it. You know, our owner is a third generation, very smart, does a great job, very involved. Dan Roebuck the third. We have a wonderful team of managers. Most of my guys have been with us 20 plus years. We're developing new talent, and our challenge is just to keep our why nots and then go after it. I don't think there's anything we can't do, and I don't think there's anything that will keep us from achieving our goals.
You still like to get up to work? Still like to get up in the morning?
Oh, absolutely. I'm 63. Don't plan on stopping anytime soon. We love what we do, and every day's a different challenge. I get in the office about between 5:30, 5:45. I leave when I get done. I love what I do. I like the thrill of it. So I'm good.
Well, I can now understand when you say other people not quite working as hard. I have to say, starting work at 5:30 in the morning is not quite the journalist's life.
Well, I've been doing it 40-something years.
We're more the late night people. I think we've got a great amount of stuff, and so I want to thank you for this time
Thank you.
The comments that you've been providing. And we'll go